Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. NCAA College Football Week 5. Week 4, 15-6, straight up picks. 8-13 against the spread, over under 15-6, 60.3%. Year to date, straight up picks, 67-28 against the spread, 45-50, over under 51-45, 57.2% year to date. Not bad. If you're new to Rubber Sports Show, welcome. I do 21 picks, 21 games of the NCAA college football season, and then all the slate of NFL games. Typically, I will do all the undefeated teams, and then as many one-loss teams as I can, up to 21. In past years, I've done more, but this year, 21 seems like a kind of a good number for me to be able to go through and get all the information I want and stuff and take care of it. Now, as we know, some of these games are actually undefeated teams versus undefeated teams. We have a Pac-12 matchup here, Washington versus UCLA. Both teams are undefeated. In history of the 14 playoff, we know undefeated or one loss. If you're a Power 5 conference champion, you can get away with one loss. If you are a non-Power 5 team, one loss is a stretch to make the playoffs. So, week 5, we have playoff implications on the line. So, our first game, we have the Utah State Aggies 1-3 versus the 3-1 BYU Cougars. BYU is favored by 24. I got BYU winning. Utah State covering that 24 and under on the 61.5. Washington Huskies undefeated at 4-0. UCLA Bruins undefeated at 4-0. This is the Pac-12 matchup. Pac-12 champion has to be undefeated to make it. I mean, we've seen one loss Pac-12 champions not make it. We've seen a one-loss Pac-12 team miss the 14 playoff with a one-loss SEC team not in the championship game make the playoffs. Now, we know UCLA is moving to Big Ten. I think it's in 2024. So, if they're undefeated then, they might have another shot. But this game, Washington is favored by 3.5. This game is in LA. I am taking the Bruins to upset to Washington. The line is Washington 3.5, so I'm giving it 3.5 to UCLA. So, I got UCLA plus 3.5, under on the 64.5. Big Ten, East versus West. Undefeated Michigan Wolverines at 4-0 versus the 3-1 Iowa Hawkeyes. Michigan is favored by 10.5. This game could easily be an upset. Iowa could possibly go in there and win. If they can hold Michigan's offense down, they probably could win. I don't think they will. Michigan is favored by 10.5. I got Michigan winning. Iowa covering it under on the 42. These two defenses are stout. Next up, out of the Big 12, we have a one-loss Oklahoma Sooners versus the undefeated TCU Horned Frogs. Oklahoma favored by 6.5. I got them winning, covering it under on the 67.5. Next up, the 2-2 Purdue Boilermakers versus the 4-0 Minnesota Golden Gophers. Gophers are favored by 12. I got them winning, covering an over on the 53. Out of the SEC, we have the undefeated Kentucky Wildcats 4-0 against the undefeated Ole Miss Rebels, also 4-0. Again, this could basically stop one of these teams from making the playoffs. Ole Miss is favored by 6.5. I got them winning, covering an under on the 55.5. Out of the Sun Belt, we have the 2-2 Texas State Bobcats versus the 3-0 James Madison Dukes. James Madison is favored by 22.5. I got the Dukes winning. The Bobcats covering over on the 52.5. Another big matchup out of the SEC, the Alabama Crimson Tide 4-0. Go Roll Tide. 3-1 Arkansas Razorbacks. The Tide are favored by 17. There's two former Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL currently undefeated. Alabama is favored by 17. I got Arkansas covering, Alabama winning, under on the 61. Kansas Jayhawks 4-0. Surprise, surprise, out of the Big 12. Versus the Iowa State Cyclones 3-1. Iowa State is favored by 3.5 here. The fact they're in Lawrence and the Jayhawks are undefeated, That place is going to be a hopping. I'm giving it 3.5 to Kansas. I got Kansas plus 3.5 with the victory over on the 58.5. Big Ten matchup: Michigan State Spartans 2-2, Maryland Terrapins 3-1. Maryland's favored by 7. I got them winning, covering it over on the 60.5. Penn State Nittany Lions 4-0, hosting the Northwest Wildcats, who are 1-3. Penn State favored by 25.5. I got them winning, covering it under on the 52. Oklahoma State Cowboys 3-0 versus the 3-1 Baylor Bears. Big 12 matchup here. Baylor is favored by 2.5 at home. The fact that the Cowboys have scored 51 points a game, giving up 22. I know Baylor's defense has only given up 16.75 points average. I like the offense of Oklahoma State, so I'm giving the 2.5 to Oklahoma State. So I got Oklahoma State plus 2.5 and over on the 56.5. The undefeated 4-0 Ohio State Buckeyes hosting the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who are 3-1. The Buckeyes are favored by, yes, 40 points. Buckeyes winning, Rutgers covering the 40, under on the 59.5. The Florida State Seminoles 4-0 hosting the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, who are 3-1. Now it all depends on the Hurricane what this game happens. Florida currently is favored by 7. I got them winning, covering it under on the 65.5. Next up, the Georgia Southern Eagles, who are 3-1. Going into the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who are 4-0. A big Sun Belt matchup here. The Coastal Carolina is favored by 10. I got them winning, covering it over on the 59.5. Two SEC teams that are one loss, LSU Tigers and the Auburn Tigers. Now, this game actually has, to me, more implication on it than just two one-loss teams. Because LSU, who did they lose to this year? Because when we look at one-loss teams, a lot of people look at it like, okay, if they have one loss, was that a good loss? Or was it a bad loss? Didn't know there was such thing as a good loss till you start following college football, and then you're like, oh, there's good losses, there's bad losses, there's mediocre losses. So, and I believe both these teams still have to play Alabama. Let's look at LSU's schedule real quick here. So LSU, their one loss came to a Florida State team. Florida State is currently undefeated. So in the roundabout way, that's a good loss. Now, LSU still has to play Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Florida. If they get a second loss, that's going to weaken them. But if Alabama gets beat by them, so LSU's one loss is an undefeated Florida State. Alabama's one loss is a one-loss LSU. Those losses would be, in college football terms, good losses. I know, right? Gives me a headache thinking about that. If you take a look at the video I put up at the beginning of the season, I will throw it up and you'll see it up there. The fact that there's a realignment in playoff. So now Auburn's one loss came to Penn State. Penn State is currently 4-0. So that's considered a good loss. They still have to play Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Alabama. So if Alabama beats one of the other teams, they're pretty much done with two losses. So yeah, so there's still a lot to play for in the SEC here. Now, LSU is favored by 9 at Auburn. I like the fact that LSU's defense is better point-wise than Auburn. They're giving up less points by a touchdown, mind you, 14-21. They're scoring 16 points a game more average, LSU is. So I got the LSU Tigers winning, covering the 9 and over in the 45.5. 3-1 Indiana Hoosiers going in the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who are 1-3. Nebraska's favored by 6.5 at home. I like home field advantage in some aspects, but here I don't think so. I got Indiana plus 6.5, winning, covering, and under on the 61.5. Ooh, ACC matchup here. NC State Wolfpack 4-0 versus the Clemson Tigers 4-0. We know Clemson, as an undefeated ACC champion, can make the playoffs. That goes for NC State too. But I think Clemson's a better football team. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 43. The 4-0 Georgia Bulldogs versus the 2-2 Missouri Tigers in Columbia, Missouri. Georgia is favored by 28. I would hope the Missouri Tigers can at least cover the 28. I got the Bulldogs winning, Tigers covering, and under on the 54.5. Next up, a battle of the 2-2 West Virginia Mountaineers and the Texas Longhorns. Texas is favored by 9.5. I got them winning. I got West Virginia covering and over on the 62. Last but not least, we have the Arizona State Sun Devils, who are 1-3, versus the 4-0 USC Trojans. So the Trojans are 4-0. The UCLA Bruins are also 4-0, and both teams in 2024 will be in the Big Ten. USC is favored by 26. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 61. Do you find it unique that they are playing in the Memorial Coliseum? USC Trojans are. And in February, on that same football field, we're going to have a NASCAR race. They're going to pave that bad boy and have the second annual Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. Yeah, we play football. We have NASCAR races there. What can't the Memorial Coliseum do after all these years? All right, that's going to wrap up week 5 of the NCAA college football season. Make sure you check that out along with the NASCAR previews of the week and then NFL week number 4 coming soon to Robert Sports Show. As always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show. And don't just have a great day, have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader in sports channel content.